Hello and welcome to the OSU Rio live streaming Thursday telecast. We at the Ohio State University South Centers collaborate with the University of Rio Grande and Rio Grande Community College to promote small business development, provide educational programs. We also provide a platform for students, faculty, and community organizations to share area activities as well as business development that includes agriculture, soil and water, aquaculture research, and best practices. Our mission is to provide programming to enhance and grow understanding of our Southern Ohio communities in our state of Ohio, as well as across the United States on a global market. Currently, over 100,000 viewers and listeners from 178 countries have tuned in to at least one of our telecasts. This week's theme is international culture, and our guest is Dr. Vicki Crooks. She's the assistant professor with the School of Arts and Letters at the University of Rio Grande Community College. Dr. Crooks recently went to China on a faculty exchange, and it's our pleasure to have her come in and talk about her experiences there. Dr. Crooks, thank you very much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Before we begin looking at a variety of different pictures that you've taken, tell the listening audience a little bit about yourself.
Well, I teach here in the communication department. I teach classes such as small group communication, public speaking, theater, intercultural communication. So this opportunity was so timely for me. I'm about to start a new class here in intercultural communication, and so I will be able to add my kind of experience of being in a culture that was very different. This is my first visit to China, so I experienced, being somewhere where I wasn't sure what to do or how to speak the language, and it was a terrific experience.
Oh, I bet it was. My wife and I have always wanted to visit Asia countries, and especially China. And I noticed through many of the pictures that you have, you're going to be talking about the university where your exchange program was doing. You also have some touristy kinds of things. Mm-hmm. It made me hungry, but some food, and then something that I only have seen on TV, and that's the terracotta different statues that really is priceless when it comes to the history of China. So, Dr. Crooks, let's start taking a look. How did you get involved in going over to China? You said it was in a teacher exchange program.
Right. So here at the university, they are working to revitalize some exchange programs with Chinese universities, and they offered faculty the opportunity to go over for a short 2-week visit during spring break and the following week after spring break. And so I applied, explained why I would like to go, and was selected. And my task was to go. I knew I would be teaching in a variety of classes. I didn't know at the time exactly what those classes would be, but that was, I understood that these were students who were studying English, and they were looking forward to having a native English speaker come and visit their classrooms. And one of the things that I teach is improvisation in non-theater settings, applied improvisation and creativity training. And so I thought that I would be able to use some of that improvisation in the classrooms that I visited, and it's what I did.
Oh, very good, very good. Well, let's take a look at some of the pictures that you have. I know that China has over 100 countries with 1 million people or more, and that it is a larger country than obviously United States.
Oh, it's
But
huge. It's huge. So I visited two cities. This was my guide in the second city of Baoji. She worked at the university there, and she interpreted for me, and she took me. This is a picture outside the Bronze Era Museum, and so she took me on the train trip and took me to the museum. Was a was a dear help to me for that week.
and the university. Tell us a little bit about the university. This university.
So this is the first university I visited. It's called Eurasia University. It's in Xi'an. Xi'an, I think, has about 13 million people in the city, give or
Wow.
take a few hundred thousand. So it's a very big city. There are many universities in the city. This university is very unique, actually. It's a pretty new university, and they model their educational philosophy on Western ideas, Western educators. So it was very interesting to me. The school has a museum that sort of talks about its founding principles. And when I visited the museum and saw that list of educators that kind of inspired their philosophy, I was impressed. One of those people was actually someone I quoted in my dissertation. So I really appreciate that they are trying to do something. I think that's very different and unique among universities in China, and that is give students more choices.
Ah, very good. I'm just curious, in their educational setup, are they very similar to, like for instance, we have primary, middle grade, and then high school, and then we have post-secondary. Do you know if the China educational program follows that suit?
It does basically. Also, primary and a middle school and a high school, and there is a big exam that happens in high school, and that determines what colleges you can go to or not go to, what things you might be able to study. It is quite a big deal, and students work very hard to try to do well on this particular exam. So once they get into a course of study, at many schools, I had the impression that there was not a great deal of opportunity to change. Something else that was really different, I went back to school, back to graduate school when I was older. I wasn't a traditional student, and my kids were already in high school. And when I mentioned that, faculty were so surprised because they just like, we can't believe that you would go back to school when you were older. So that's one difference, I think, that you have an opportunity to go to college when you are a young person, but not so much once you're past a certain age.
See, I found, when I undertook my master's, it was about 10 years ago. It made so much more sense than if I were to have gone right out of college into my master's program.
Sure. A faculty member said, we were talking in front of her class, and I told her I was past 40 when I went back to school, and she said, that must have been hard. You're losing your memory at that point. I was like, yes, thank you so much. But, managed.
I understand. I understand. So, in looking at another picture, Dwayne's pulling up. What is this? The same school, or is this a different?
So
school?
this is Eurasia. This is that first school that I was talking about. This is a picture of their library, and this school is very beautiful. The president of the university had training in architecture, and so many of the spaces are very they're lovely, and they're designed to give students places to gather, and so it was very Very lovely campus.
And,
Modern.
and so what's the tower? Is that an architectural?
That's a clock tower.
Oh. Huh. Oh, very
Behind
interesting.
in the back, I was sorry, I was going to just say, you see some high-rise buildings in the back
Yes.
because everywhere in the city are high-rise apartment buildings. It's a lot of people to provide housing for, so high-rise apartments are everywhere.
Huh. That's interesting. And here, moving on to the next picture, we're in
Right.
sort of a campus square or something.
Yeah, so this is the university in Baoji. This is a public university. The other school is a private university, and students here are having waltzing class, and so they were learning to count out their dance steps here on the corner. So thought it was fun to watch for a little while.
Ballroom dancing in China.
That's right.
That is neat. And so on this particular picture, what are we looking at?
So this is also Baoji University, the school where there's dancing, right? And Baoji is also, excuse me, a big city, probably maybe 8 million or something. So this school has, I think, 20,000 students. So it's bigger than the other school.
And this is the newer, yeah, you can see the newer architecture that was involved. And the square that we have, is that for like commencement or activities?
Excuse me, I'm not actually certain if there is kind of a designated thing that happens in that particular square. One thing that's different is that all of the student class schedules all happen at the same time. So every student is in class at the same time and they get out at the same time. So it gets quite busy as students are going from class to class. In the afternoon after lunch, there is also nap time.
I'm all for it.
It was a little bit of a surprise to me. We were being given a tour of the university, and I was expected to go to class later in the afternoon, and our host kept saying, "Do you want to take a nap before you go to class?" And I'm thinking, like, what? Do I look like I'm really tired? And then I learned that everybody actually takes a nap break, and faculty rest in their offices,
And even your guide, she was encouraging.
He was wanting his nap, yes, but I didn't know. But after that day, I learned.
I understand. And so the next picture that we have is the same.
This is Baoji University, the public university.
Okay. I noticed that there was a statue. Did you happen to go by and see who the statue was?
I didn't actually, because it was in Chinese.
Oh, okay.
So,
yeah, that makes sense.
There are several statues, excuse me, on the campus, and all of the plaques are written in Chinese.
Oh.
Not surprisingly,
Huh.
but
Who would have thought? And here is a typical classroom.
this is a typical classroom. This is Baoji. Notice that almost every student in this class is female.
Oh,
There is a much higher percentage of females who are majoring in English, and most of these students are headed for careers as middle school English teachers.
oh, very good. And so I'm assuming that China is a 2 or 3 language country. In other words, English and Chinese are taught. Are there other languages that they teach?
Well, all of those students, if you are majoring in English, you're expected to also have a second language in addition to Chinese, and their choices there were Russian, Japanese, or Korean.
Huh. Wow, that's rather interesting. I would have thought more romantic lances or the Romance languages like French or.
Right, yeah, it's true. I was many students said to me that they apologized that their English wasn't as good as they would like it to be, and but I was so impressed that they were able to, be in a class led by an English-speaking teacher and be able to keep up. And it's just like, this is a window to the world. I really encourage them to keep up their studies. I think it's such an advantage.
Yeah, and I think that United States should get more into two languages.
Absolutely. I don't know why we don't start that in elementary school.
Let's take a look at some of the tourist places that you've, before we get to that, we always want to deal with food.
So this is, I'd say it's not a terrific picture, but I was so amazed at this. This is the school cafeteria, and all along the windows in both the upper and lower stories are cooks who are there ready to make noodle dishes or stir fry, steamed dumplings, hot pots. So students come to the window, to one spot at the window, and order one of those dishes.
Wow.
It's fabulous.
Just out of curiosity, and Dwayne's going to show some noodles here, but the food that we have, the Chinese food that we have here in the United States, as compared to there, are ours similar? Is it more spicy, less spicy?
Well, just like the United States, there are regions with different food cultures in China. That was a plate of noodles, and where the province where I was visiting is famous for noodles. So every restaurant that I went into had someone there hand making noodles, as opposed to, say, rice, which you might expect in other parts of China. This is also a place where food can be pretty spicy, although everyone was very gracious to ask me if I wanted to have a little bit less chili with my food. But yeah, famous for noodles.
Huh. And what was the green? Was that asparagus?
I don't actually remember. Yeah, I think those were asparagus.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
That's interesting.
At this particular dinner, this is just one picture. We went to dinner. Our host, very gracious director of the Foreign Affairs Office, and he ordered probably 15 different dishes because he wanted us to have sort of a wide range of styles and types. And he told us stories of his travels. He had been to 60 countries, including North and South Korea, and just had an amazing history. And we visited his house afterward, and it was lovely to be able to be at his home and meet his family.
Huh. Well, there's an old axiom: we don't remember our meetings, our day-long meetings, but we do remember the food.
Oh, absolutely. That was one picture, but honestly, I have 70 pictures of dishes on my phone. It was delicious.
We're not going to necessarily have time to get through some of the touristy things. Now, this is interesting. That I at one of the schools, those are what kind of tables are those?
So ping pong is everybody's favorite game, and this is outdoor. There's a basketball court next to this, but it was the ping pong tables that were always full of students every afternoon.
That's
Boys,
neat.
girls, everybody playing ping pong in the afternoon. So very popular.
If you don't mind, I'd like to move to your unique part of China, Chinese history, and that's the terracotta statues.
Yes, it's fabulous. It was the one thing that I was most looking forward to seeing when I got there, just because it's such a remarkable historical, archaeological. It was just amazing. In the 70s, someone was digging a well and discovered a piece of broken pottery, and that led to this. The discovery, I think, at this point there have been 6,000 of these warriors and horses and chariots that have been reassembled.
Now,
Amazing.
it's my
So,
understanding that one of the former dynasties, and for the life of me, I can't remember, when he died, he was of such great power and magnitude that they buried all of these statues with him.
yeah, so he was actually called the first emperor of China. He sort of he united all those warring sort of factions, and um, the belief was that they would come to life in the afterlife, and so he needed protection, and he needed um, appropriate to his rank, and so those are life-size statues. Each one has a different like facial features, different hairdos. It's just amazing to see. So this chariot that's bronze and amazing. Uh,
Well, just the intricacies.
yes.
I'm quite sure they had to restore some of it. Maybe there was some scratches in the paint, but I think this would be a place that you would want to spend a lot of time, a lot of history to
Yeah,
this.
absolutely. Many of those soldiers that look intact now were discovered in pieces and were painstakingly put together. So it's remarkable. There are places, these are called pits. There are 3 pits there at this exhibit, and you can see places in the pits where it looks like a pile of shards, and they, sort of take them and fit them together. So
Wow,
it's
wow,
remarkable.
that's just amazing. Dr. Crooks, we only have a few. We have about 4 minutes left. Why should your students at the University of Rio Grande consider visiting China?
Um, when the students that I was meeting in China asked me about visiting the United States, I gave them the same answer that I will give you, and that is that your perspective is forever changed or broadened when you have the opportunity to experience a culture that is different, to get a chance to see people who do things differently, and in the context of a enjoyable, positive relationship. That's the way that we learned about the world. It's the way we change how we relate. It's the way we become more comfortable with people who are different than we are. To be brave and recognize that difference is sometimes scary, but ultimately rewarding. So I will encourage my students to visit to visit other countries, to visit other states, to visit people who are different than they are, and I would love to have some of our Chinese students join us in classes, and for the same reason.
Yeah, that's so true. If we were to take the politics of countries out of it, and we were just to be able to visit, we would find that people want to be treated like they will treat people like they want to be treated.
Sure.
And just the great the number of experiences that you experience sort of testify to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Difference is real, and difference matters. And I think that being curious about those differences, and being willing to try new things, and to perhaps think about things differently, that's ultimately what education is about.
You're
So,
right. You're right.
that I want that for my students. I want them to think differently, to
Well,
think
yeah, I
broad.
agree. And our telecast sort of speak to what you're saying. We have two universities coming together, working together, and there's an explosion of information.
Yeah, absolutely. And goodwill. I mean, people were so gracious to me and so hospitable, so eager to show me the things that they loved about their homes or their cities or their school. And I felt the same way when students asked me about the United States. I was happy to talk about things that I love about the United States. So, it's in the context of relationship, I think that cultural bridges really can be can happen.
Very, very true. Um, I want to thank you, Dr. Crooks. Hey, we're speaking with Dr. Vicki Crooks. She's the assistant professor with the School of Arts and Letters with the University of Rio Grande and Rio Grande Community College. I hope that Dr. Crooks, you would be willing to come back on and talk more, especially about the food part.
That's right.
I want to take this time to thank Mike Thompson, who's the Instructional Design and Media Services at the University of Rio Grande, for assisting, as well as Dwayne Rigsby. He's our OSU technician who is working with us. So I thank all the people in front and behind. I'm Patrick. Thank you for listening, and hope to see you soon.